Hi, I'm Allegra Jordan, and I just came back from a walk in my neighborhood where even though I was physically apart from neighbors, some that I knew, some that I didn't, I heard intimate and very close stories about suffering that people are going through, especially the suffering of my neighbors' children. The parents are hurt for their children who are losing their friends through the social distance that we need to keep to remain safe right now. So I wanted to talk about two tools that I've used in my life, which started out in the military, which by definition moves you from base to base unless you're one of those few people who don't move very much. But I wasn't, and we moved from base to base, and each time I lost friends. And then I had a number of experiences in my life which taught me even more about what it means to lose a friend. We lose friends, we regain some of them, we change. The point of the next two tools that I want to share with you is to help you through that process. The first tool I have is from my dad's own tool chest. He had a hardware store. He was a carpenter. My grandfather was a carpenter. And this is a neat little measuring stick. It's nicely folded up, and at times you can take out little pieces of it and examine however much length you want to examine. I often walk around like this, just really bundled up nicely, tightly. I don't need to examine that much. But when difficulty comes to our door, we do need to examine ourselves so we understand what do we need to keep, what do we need to take, what do we need to change. The tool I'd like to use is a way of stretching ourselves out and seeing what's inside of us. And this tool is a little box of index cards that I made about 10 years ago. I was going through a tough spot. I was losing a great friendship, and I wanted to know what was inside of me that was coming up. Now, I sat down, and with each bit of me, each type of personality, each type of feeling, I created a card for that. And one of my cards was a very scary card. See this card? And on this card, I represented my fear about my occupation. It says, rely on writing and in a competitive market, is that wise? This is the doubting voice inside of me. And I made a card for that so that I could know that this doubting voice is inside of me. It's part of me. There was a happy voice. There was something that inside of me just is so happy and so healthy. And I made a card for that. So when I have this feeling, when these feelings come up, this is part of me too. There's a part of me that's very artistic. There's a part of me that says, if you don't work in a traditional job, this is how you'll end up. It's a very loud voice sometimes. And then there's this other part of me, which is about being cherished as a daughter. And just like the parents I met are cherishing their kids, my dad and my mom cherish me. And that's good, but at some point we lose our parents, and my dad has passed on. And sometimes there's still part of me that is this cherished daughter, and I keep that around. Eventually, you don't need these. You understand what part of you is showing up, and you know their upsides and downsides. And that's what's called integration. And we integrate through a number of experiences where we're brought to understand what's going on. And so that's one tool about examining ourselves. A second tool I brought out is duct tape. I like these clever duct tapes. This is a Hello Kitty roll of duct tape. And the duct tape to me represents how are we going to piece ourselves back together until we heal? Because we're going into this new place, and we need to understand that process is not linear. It can be long or short. And what we want to do is go through the mourning process. We don't want to move into self-pity, although sometimes we will. This is not going to be a perfectionist game. And then we also want to be able to understand what the reintegration challenge will be, because we separate from our friends, we go through a mourning process, and then when we get back with our friends, they'll have changed, you'll have changed, and you have to decide, do we want to re-up? So a couple of elements that we can do to duct tape ourselves together is to understand that we are wounded by these separations. Our children are wounded. There's a loss here. And one of the quickest ways to get through loss is, unfortunately, to sit with it. One time I had a great business friend who I needed to separate from, and I just looked out the window for about 2 weeks, knowing that if I sat and looked out the window for 2 weeks and dealt with whatever came up, knowing, oh, I feel mourning and sadness or betrayal or anger, whatever I felt, I could name and I could sit with it, and it would rise and it would subside. And in that way, I was able to get through the process of mourning as, I think, quickly as a human can get through it. And on the other side of that, I knew that I was strong, I could deal with this, and that, okay, that's where we are. I'm still here, and eventually life comes back. I wish all the parents who are hurting right now that I could hug you. I can't. I have children myself, and my sons are each going through different parts of the big changes, and I wish I could hug them. They're in different cities. I can't right now. But I wish you well, and I wish these two tools for you so that during this time you can learn a little bit about yourself by introspection and examining what is coming up. And then you could also learn to duct tape yourself together while you're going through a process, which is a very human process and is one that will help you grow into a more resilient person despite the sadness of the time. Wishing you well.